Hello everyone, Jared here, and in today's video, we're finishing off our trip to Guilin with a visit to the old palace grounds in the heart of the downtown area. Here we are inside of the palace museum that they have in Guilin, so we're gonna go ahead and see what they've got inside this place without hopefully getting too much of a sunburn. The Guilin Palace Museum, also known as Jinjiang Prince's Palace, was originally built sometime between 1372 and 1392 AD, during the early days of the Ming Dynasty. However, the archway that you're seeing here was built much later, during the Qing Dynasty, during the early 1800s. The first thing we did when entering this palace was walking around the grounds, and we saw that there were several buildings we couldn't get into. However, directly in front of the gate there was one place that we could seemingly go up to, which was called Chongyun Palace, which, as it says on the sign here, was originally built during the Ming Dynasty, but burned down, before being rebuilt just about 70 years ago. At least this stairway here is still the original thing. Anyways, once we went up that staircase, we were ushered in by this guard into this massive room, along with a large group of tourists. We were told to move in as far as we could, so that more and more people could come in and make room before they eventually needed to close the doors so that we could look at the screen up front and center in the middle of the room. So, what was on this screen, you might ask? Actually, they show a short film highlighting the history of the palace and why it was decided that this particular mountain was chosen as the site around which the palace was constructed, before opening up other doors on the side and letting us into the actual museum's exhibits. Definitely never expected any kind of show like this or any exhibit inside of this place to be all so modernized. Now, what do I mean by modernized? I mean, everything here really looks like it was just redone only a few years ago. None of it really has that ancient China vibe, because, as I mentioned a little bit ago, everything was built just about 70 years ago, so there aren't any parts of this that really strike you as aged. In spite of that, however, there were some interesting exhibits inside, such as those which highlighted the Jinjiang families, which had ruled over this area for a while. And as you can see behind me in this video, there was also a lifelike display of what the Jinjiang prince would have looked like back in the day in all of his traditional attire. And if you want to see what some of this looks like up close, they have the crown here on display. I'd never seen a crown with so many little pearls all over the place. Also, right next to it, they have some of the hair ornaments that were worn by the prince, as well as his traditional robes that they've managed to preserve till today. Unfortunately, there are not really any good English descriptions about things inside the museum, as you can see in this clip here on the masks. But, in spite of that, there's still many things here that you can see that I'm sure you'll enjoy, such as these old figurines of a procession, which is what it would have looked like when the prince was coming to or leaving from the palace. Probably one of the strange things that happened here, though, is as we moved further in, they had everyone go into this chamber where they had these tables lit up, and I guess there was some kind of archaeology game involving stamps that we couldn't really figure out. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments down below what was happening here. But anyways, it was only a short bit later that we were ushered from this room and outside the back of the building with the tour group that we were following. This hasn't been at all what we were expecting it to be. Then again, we had no idea what to expect in the first place. But hopefully, we'll be able to get a good view of the city once we go up there. Yep, that was our next goal, climbing right up Solitude Peak, as it's known in English. And I actually thought that it looked a lot smaller from the bottom here than it turned out to be. At the base of the mountain was this really interesting cave, which we found out shortly thereafter was also where many monks and scholars would go into with candles in order to read in seclusion. Hence the name it was given, the Reading Cave. Unfortunately, this one was closed off for visitors. However, very close by, there was apparently one which allowed tour groups to go inside. So, we decided to follow them in, and we quickly realized that this would go all the way through the mountain. It's pretty dark inside the cave, so please excuse the poor lighting here. But apparently inside of the cave, there are over 60 god statues that are enshrined and worshipped here. And as you can see, there are all these kneeling benches for praying to them on the sides. So, once we made our way through there, we decided it was finally time to climb on up to the top of the mountain. And just like with pretty much all the other climbs up in China, I would go up there first, hurrying up ahead and looking back to see how my father's progress was going. Eventually, though, I kind of left him behind, and I was starting to wonder if he was actually coming up all the way after all, because it really was a lot of steps. Even I was getting tired from this climb, as you can hear in the following clips. No idea if he's going to be climbing up this way. Whew. Shouldn't have hurried up. It's definitely a climb. Don't recommend it for people who have zero stamina. But we're pretty high up. Still more to go. Still haven't quite reached the top. Unfortunately, my camera doesn't seem to have a very good haze filter. So, really shows you more of the pollution than anything else than the scenery. But if I flip my camera around, then it looks a lot better. That is more the scene I see. Also with that line that ends with pollution. That's what I see too. I'll keep going. The peak is up that way. Just have to go up a few more flights. And once I saw this, I knew I was almost there. At the top here, we appear to have a temple and quite the view of the city. Unfortunately, since it's so polluted, you can't really see all that much in the distance. Why'd I run up the stairs? And we made it. We are at the peak. That was a bit of a climb. About, what, 10 stories? Could be worse. Okay, maybe a few more than 10 stories. But the view would definitely be more worth it if you came on a day where the air quality was better. So, here we are with the sight from the top of the mountain. It's probably much more worth seeing when you can actually see further. But it's not just the sight off the mountain that's worth seeing. There are also a few things that are on the mountain itself that are a little bizarre and worth seeing too. Maybe it's just because I don't understand what they are, but there appeared to be a lot of prayer necklaces tied along all the railings that were up here, as well as this. An old statue of a turtle that's either being surrounded by a snake or it's part of its tail. Anyways, it appeared that my father had made it up a short while after that, and together we moved over to this spot, the observation deck, from where we got to see the best view of Guilin. So, I hope you enjoyed this little bit of footage we're able to show you, because the people who were working here wouldn't let us stay there for very long. I'm sure all of you thought it was going to be nice and beautiful, but this is how it actually looks. That is not fog, that is smog. And this is what it looks like all year round. I thought coming in the summer would make it better, but clearly that isn't the case. Even with the rains, it's still this bad with pollution. Again, we could have just come here on a bad week, when the pollution was exceptionally bad. But based off of our two experiences at different times of the year, it really wasn't as good as it looked in lots of pictures. Hopefully you or someone else will be able to see this during a better time than when we came. Anyways, after just a couple of minutes standing there, we were kicked out in favor of the next people who wanted to stand at the observation deck, and then proceeded to head on back down the mountainside. This is where the fun begins, the climb down. I don't know about you, but I find climbing down to be much easier than going up. However, you should know that the steps are not really even, so you have to be careful when you are going down, because it would really be easy to have a misstep and fall down. And maybe that's why my father ended up taking his time coming down, instead of me, who was just really hurrying his way to the bottom as fast as possible. And when I was at the bottom, I just waited for him to finish coming down. And with that, we are done. We have made it to the bottom. How do you feel? Well, after visiting the palace, we were pretty exhausted since it was a couple miles walking to get there in the first place. So we had our last meal in Guilin back again at this Indian restaurant, where we got some good food like I showed in the last video, before checking out a few more shops around the area and heading to this giant plaza, which is in the center of the city and right across from the Holiday Inn hotel where we were staying at. So, that's it for our trip here in Guilin. Time really flew by on this video, compared to my last few. Don't worry though, because the next one's going to be significantly longer again, as we head off to our next city, Changsha, which we'll be heading to yet again via the railway, and then going to seeing some of the sites that the city is famous for, such as the Hunan Provincial Museum, where there are a lot of great ancient artifacts, such as the Mawangdui exhibit, which I'll give a description about in the next video, as well as a silk museum/store. Oh yeah, and there's going to be some good food as well. So, I hope you look forward to seeing it. Until next time. Thank you again for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Also, please share this channel with others so we can make the channel grow together as I continue to put out more videos.